on our tax mix.
The member for Bendigo.
For a bunch of old boys, it appears they've forgotten the first rules of debate. You have to have an opposition that asks questions and challenges policy that's being put forward. You'd think with all the private school education that they've got on the front bench, they'd understand the first rules of debate. And this government is the one that started the debate on GST. Just look at the headlines that they created all on their own. Changes to the GST back on the agenda, West Australian, 22nd of September 2015. Turnbull may take the GST rise to the voters. The Age, the 17th of September 2015. Rise in the GST signalled for the next election. Sydney Morning Herald, 17th of September. Now, this is a government that now says, no, we're not going to have a debate with the opposition. We can't possibly have a debate with the opposition. Maybe they want to debate themselves. Maybe it's a bit of a standing in front of the mirror exercise. Maybe the Prime Minister's been standing in front of the mirror and it's been a bit of a mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all moment. Just maybe that's what the Prime Minister's been up to, because he won't answer a question in this place. He won't answer a question in this place from the opposition, who is responsible for asking questions on core government policies, and this is one. Or perhaps it's because his backbench has been quick in there to say this is a stinker. This is a policy that will cost us our seats. And maybe the reason why the government's now trying to pretend that they didn't raise this issue is because it is unpopular, because the mums and dads that the member for Wannon talk about know what this will cost them. Country electorates, regional electorates like my electorate are worried. They are concerned. They are concerned about the fact that this government has refused to rule out GST on their rents. Housing affordability is a real issue, yet this government tries to talk about it's the state's responsibility. We'll rule out GST on rents. This government has also refused to rule out GST on rates. Now, country electorates like mine, we have councils that have increased rates by 18% over 3 years. That's why the state Labor government's talking about rate capping. You can imagine the shock horror of local governments that they've got rate capping, and now this government wants to increase the GST by 5%. So any benefits of rate capping are lost. They are lost because this government wants to increase the GST, but they're not going to give it back to local government. No, they've still frozen the local government's assistance grants. So they've upset local government by failing to rule out GST on rates, GST on fresh food. You'd think the member for Wannon and all the other country MPs, particularly the national MPs, would be up in arms. How is this going to help the farm gate prices? They keep standing up here saying over and over again that an increase in the farm gate prices is what's going to save this country. You whack 15% on it and you see how quickly people can afford their grocery bills every time they go to the checkout. And now let's get to fuel. This is a government who, when John Howard was in government and he introduced the GST, he said we have to freeze fuel excise. We'll freeze fuel excise because we're introducing a 10% GST. Then what did this government try to do in their first budget? Increase fuel excise. Eventually they got their wish. They've increased fuel excise, and less than 6 months later they're talking about whacking another 5% onto fuel. What does this government have against country people? We drive further in the regions, we spend more on fuel because of the fact we drive further, and now we're going to have to pay more in this government in GST. And then we get to schools. This government abolished the school kids bonus. They're introducing cuts over and over again, trying to push cuts onto families by changing family tax benefit. And now what they're saying is, now we want to increase the GST. Mums and dads know this government for who they are. They are only going after them. They're not going after their mates in business. They are not going after the big end of town through multinational tax avoidance. They are going after the mums and dads and their hip pocket. And let's not forget about Christmas. This has to be one of the meanest governments to go after Christmas. So now the Christmas ham, the great Aussie prawns, the turkey, all the trimmings that go with it, they too will go up as a result of this government's plan to increase the GST.